doing our own thing. All right. And there we are, up and running on YouTube. Good morning, everybody. I'm so grateful to have you all here. We're here with Karen and Michale, and we're going to be reading Forgiveness in Jesus from Kenneth Wapnick. And I'm going to turn the mic over to you and let you pray us in.
I'm thinking of fragmentation of flows of trade, so in terms of supply chain fragmentation. Good morning, everybody. Hi, Michale, Gov, Lynn, Deb, Gloria, Nikki.
Doing our own thing.
This morning, I'm going to open up with a poem by our Lynn Artino, Brooklyn. Shoulds echo from a dimension not here and fade away when forgiven as it forgives guilt. Where I am is where I be, as I bathe in grace of total trust. Clean the house, go buy food. Why did you cancel an appointment to be here now? Fear is not of this dimension. Choice is only that I know. I pardon the voices of debris. Doubt becomes a thorn removed. Light, loves, and blessings, Brooklyn.
Beautiful. Thank you, Karen, for reading that. So Karen and I are on the 7th edition of Forgiveness, the meeting place of A Course in Miracles and Christianity, Forgiveness in Jesus. And we ended on page 84, thinking of injustice and suffering. And last Friday, we had completed on forgiveness of injustice, false versus true healing, and magic versus the miracle. So, Karen, we had read the first two paragraphs on the meaning of injustice and suffering. I think it might be important to go over those first two paragraphs again this Friday. You let me know what you think.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start the reading on those first two paragraphs because it'll go in line with the rest of the paragraphs that we'll be reading today. And it's going to be really interesting because if anybody grew up in during World War II and Nazi Germany, Ken's going to go into Corrie ten Boom and her sister and the story of that. So it's I remember reading about that in elementary school and history and choosing stories, little books that you had to read about. So it'll be a really interesting class today. Okay, I'm going to start off with the reading of the first two paragraphs.
You'll have to tell me where you're, I guess, I'm not sure, so I'll just wait until you start reading and I'll find the place.
It's Lynn, it's the meaning of injustice and suffering, and it's the first and second.
Oh, okay.
Right. We have seen how all anger is an attempt to have others change so that we do not, to stop their behavior that we have judged as undesirable, to make them feel guilty enough over their action not to repeat it, and to teach the lesson of ego identification we wish them to learn with us. We can recognize this motivation in ourselves most clearly in those actions that are directly hostile, both in individual cases as well as those social and international situations where innocent people are seen to be oppressed and persecuted. No one would deny the need to intervene so that injustice is corrected and people do not suffer, but we must first define what injustice and suffering are and who the real intervening agent would be in a situation that is calling for help. This is the focus of the rest of this chapter. If we perceive someone unjustly treating another, whether the other be ourselves, loved ones, or people living in a foreign country, we cannot avoid believing the perpetrator of injustice is bad and deserving of punishment. The lesson we are teaching then is that people should not hurt others because it makes us angry and we do not approve of it or them. These actions are evil, and therefore, so are the ones committing them. If people wish to be good, they must cease what they are doing, for our approval of them depends on their behavior, not only our approval, but God's, whom we believe we represent. Therefore, once the perception of injustice is made, no alternative can follow but that of a judgment that subtly sets up the conditions of love. Either people behave in accordance with our values, or they are denied salvation and cast out of God's kingdom. This is another example of what the Course terms the arrogance of the ego, presuming to know God's will and taking upon itself the right to carry it out. So these two paragraphs that we read and ended with last week actually go in line with today's lesson. If you're following the workbook lesson, lesson 325, which is all things I think I see reflect, let me see, all things I think I see reflect ideas. So it's always an outside picture of an inward condition. And also it goes in line too with I myself am working on non-judgment. And so what we perceive, we judge it. And so it's important to, as Ken had spoken of earlier, to reverse figure and ground. And so you can see this too in some of the stories, historical stories uh, in the Bible and in different books, how man's perception on judging, there's different levels to how you perceive that story. And if you look at it from a point of judgment, then you're looking at it more on a physical level. So, and the arrogance of the ego comes in, and then the ego thinks it can speak for God and think for God. So would anyone like to comment on this before we go into starting the third paragraph under the meaning of injustice and suffering? I see your hand is up, Karen, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Michale. I love that you brought today's lesson up. And the outside picture of an inward condition, that everything is that, and the judgment that you talked about, that is the injustice that he's talking about here, the judgments that we have on others. But what came to me this week that I didn't notice last week was, if we perceive someone unjustly treating another, whether the other be ourselves, loved ones, or people living in a foreign country, we cannot avoid believing the perpetrator of injustice is bad and deserving of punishment. So this just reminded me of in the Course where he talks about, in the section of the end of injustice, beware of the temptation to perceive yourself unfairly treated. In this view, you seek to find an innocence that is not theirs, capital T, but yours alone at the cost of someone else's guilt. So it's the projection makes perception. I'm blaming you for something that I don't want to look at in myself. The old Ken idea of I exist and it's not my fault. I blame you. Um, and theirs, theirs is the all-inclusive nature of everyone. So if we can't, this is what the course teaches, and this what Ken teaches, that if we can't say that everyone is being unfairly treated, then we can say that no one is being unfairly treated. So this is the all-inclusive nature of forgiveness, learning that we can't single anyone out. It's all or nothing. So it just reminded me of that passage. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. That was really good. What you said, I really enjoyed that. And yes, it's always an outside picture of an inward condition. So it does go in line definitely with today's lesson. So all things I think I see reflect ideas, so or thoughts. Anyways, would anyone else like to comment on this paragraph before we go on to paragraph 3? No? Okay. I'll go ahead then and read the third paragraph here. If, on the other hand, we perceive acts of injustice as frightened calls for help, following the judgment of the Holy Spirit discussed above, we can no longer see the agent of this injustice as evil or sinful. The lesson we wish to teach, therefore, is that this person is loved by God and deserves this love, regardless of his or her actions. There can be no other lesson we would teach, for there is no other lesson we would learn. A person who feels the love of God would want only to demonstrate this love to those who do not know it. This does not mean we necessarily approve of the actions of the quote victimizer, end quote, but merely that we expand the circle of help to include among those who suffer the ones who seem to be bringing it about. A perception that excludes them comes from an unconscious need to find a scapegoat so that our own guilt can be projected. So this is really important. So Ken always tells us, does it include everyone? So he's saying that we don't have to approve of the actions of the victimizer, but we have to expand our circle to include everyone and even to have that empathy and compassion for the the person that is the victimizer in this situation and that they're just looking for a scapegoat. So it's our own guilt that is projected outward. So it's always the stepping back and the looking. And then forgiveness is really the catalyst that breaks it up. So would anyone like to comment on this paragraph?
I just for a moment, this is really beautiful and so wonderful because, right now in this world, in this situation that we appear to be experiencing, there is a lot of uh, projected guilt. And, we begin to see even political figures, cultural figures, religious figures, uh, community leaders, all sorts of people that right now are being, there's a lot of accusations coming up about, some guilty things that are perceived by the most part of society as being really um, unforgivable. a lot of things that are considered unforgivable. And I don't really want to go into my own story. Those most of you probably know that my stepfather molested me from the time I was 4 years old until basically he died when I was 12. So for all those years, I was under um, this untenable situation for a child, something that, children should never have to consider, think about, or know about. But um, when I was able to actually look at just these particular things, these ideas of uh, guilt and suffering, and understanding that you know, as evil as the thought is about what he did, um, I still have tremendous compassion for him, and learn to recognize that yes, it was a call for love that couldn't be I was in no position to answer because that just it wasn't that way, but I can answer it now. And this is the thing we have to understand, that these are all situations that happen to show us that the only thing that is really appropriate in any of these situations is compassion and love, returning love for the call for love, not love in as far as enabling that kind of behavior, but love as in truly loving the brother, knowing that um, they're acting out on their own beliefs, and that's what he's talking about, these ideas and these beliefs that people have, that their thoughts are almost impossible to overcome, or to go against, because of this tremendous um, lack of love. So I was able to absolutely forgive him, absolutely see that you know my part in it, which think, well, you're a child, you didn't have a part in it, but recognizing the big picture is that I'm not that child. I'm not a person. I'm not a body. What I am is the Holy Son of God, who has been sent here to represent him who sent me. And I know this is kind of getting convoluted, but you have to, it's not justifying anything that happened. It's recognizing that this is all part of the story of Lynn, and the story of Lynn is fiction. But it's here for a reason, and it's here for me to recognize that what could be seen as unforgivable um, is absolutely forgivable, because it's not a perpetration of one, evil upon, innocent people. It really is a call for love. And the only real answer to it is love. And you can do that now. You can do this very moment. Think about, someone who did something to you, something that you couldn't forgive at the time, or to someone that you loved, or to a whole culture like Hitler. You can look at all of these things, and you can answer that with love and heal that now. We can heal the past right now through practicing that forgiveness. So, long story, but I think, especially now, because it's so much in the public news about these, terrible crimes that happen against these young ladies, and all these things that happen, you know, this is a time to really, really focus on what is real here and what's really happening, and to stop um, pointing out the bad guys, and recognize that um, these things are all happening so that we can learn to determine, we can see that it's a call for love, and we can respond with love. Anyway, enough of that, and thank you for letting me share.
And thank you, Lynn, for your sharing. And That's wonderful that you can forgive your stepfather and that you've really grown and from that experience. And I really appreciate your sharing that with all of us here this morning. And I just want to say that it goes in line too. You mentioned Hitler, so it goes in line with what we're going to read in the next couple paragraphs about Corrie ten Boom and her sister. And I think it was a book, the inspiring book I read as a child called The Hiding Place. But I just want to say that when I was with the group, with attending the Tara Singh retreats, there was, because I was living in California, there was a psychic at the time. She did this three selves evaluation, and Tara Singh had said that she was 90% accurate. So he said, if you're going to go to anybody, go to her. So Dr. Bella Kurish has since passed away. So I went to her, and I had asked her, I myself was not molested, but I had asked her a question about something about that towards molestation. And she was in a different state at the time that I asked the question. So I don't know who the entity was that was speaking through her, but it said, I don't know if this helps you at all, Lynn. It said that sometimes the molestation comes from a past life memory. Now the reality is there is no past life. Everything is happening right now. It's like a hologram, and it's you're choosing. You're the decision maker. You're stepping back, and you're viewing which uh, VHS or DVD you wanna watch, right? But the entity through Dr. Bella Koresh had said that sometimes it's a past life memory because DNA has a frequency, a tone on that level. And they were like a high priest where they could have anybody they wanted. They could have their sister, they could have their daughter, they could have their mother. And sometimes it's it comes from that memory. So that's all I just wanted to bring up. And I wanted also to bring up that there is no past life. Everything, because time isn't linear, everything is happening right now. So it's our perception and what the decision maker is choosing to view on the projector screen. The second thing that I wanted to bring up was because we're going to be going into the hiding place in Corrie ten Boom, is that, as you know, my grandfather was in for 6 years in a French prison camp, and he had no anger, no animosity against anybody, and he. It was interesting growing up with them. My grandparents, I was very blessed to have them around, and they told me, did Hitler, was there an evil side to Hitler? Absolutely. And the atrocities were horrible. However, they told me the good that Hitler had done about the drawing of the Volkswagen bug, the beetle, and how that means the car for everyone, right? The family, and how he would take the person that was sweeping the streets and he would make sure that that person had a 2 week vacation every year. So, just like how you brought up, Lynn, about what's going on in this world situation, we always have to balance the scale. And does it include everybody? So I really like what you said. And I see Glorian's hand is up, so I'm going to let Glorian go ahead. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. What beautiful sharing and a testimony of love and forgiveness. I just want to say to what you said, Michale, it was so important about pointing that out about time being simultaneous and all time is now. But this is why we can raise our frequency and our vibration to the Christ consciousness, to the fourth dimension awareness of truth now. So that's the blessing of it that, yeah, we can choose to look onto these seeming past lives because, I think that's what's going on with the timelines. And as we are raising our consciousness, we are becoming more and more unbound by time in the recognition that there is no time. So, it's a blessing when we realize that right now in this moment, if we raise our frequency, then we're in that fourth dimension of the Christ consciousness. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Glorian. Yes, it is. It's raising our frequencies. And as in like Vedantic terms, you call it samskaras, right? Well, you raise your frequency and then you shift figure and ground. So your perception through forgiveness, which is the catalyst, it's like kind of like being in a chemistry class where you drop that solution and it changes it. That's what the forgiveness does. And it changes your perception. And now your samskara is cut. The cord is cut to that samskara, that past life that you had, which is a classroom, that everything that comes up again that needs to be healed. And yes, and time, there is no time, the reality, it's all happening right now. So I love how you brought that up, and thank you, Gorian. So would anyone else like to comment before I read the next paragraph on the hiding place and about the Corey ten Boom and her sister, Betsy? I see Karen's hand is up, so please go ahead, Karen.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Michale. Thank you, Glorian. I love what everyone's sharing. And as to what Lynn shared, the script is written, and also everything that happens here is happening for our awakening. So this got you're talking about it now in the healing sense, where it's healing, and it's healing for all. You're healing everyone. The whole world is being healed by this, by seeing this. The happening at the time wasn't really understandable to a child. And a lot of things that happen, we don't know what anything is for, and that's why we do trust that all things do work together for good unless we judge it. The same with Hitler. We don't know. We didn't know what any of that was for. But everything does happen for our greatest good and for our awakening. And as far as the victim and the victimizer, I think this is a huge topic here, what we're talking about, that the victim and the victimizer are the same. And that when we see that they are the same, we see it talks about it in different places in the course. There's one place where he says the father and son, either the father and son are murderers or neither is. So if I'm calling you a murderer, I'm a murderer too. We can't be different because projection makes perception. And he also talks about it in chapter 20, let's say 24, in section 1, specialness as a substitute for love. He says, would it be possible for you to hate your brother if you were like him? Could you attack him if you realized you journey with him? Could you attack him if you realized you journey with him to a goal that is the same? Would you not help him reach it in every way you could if his attainment of it were perceived as yours? You are his enemy and specialist, his friend in a shared purpose. Specialness can never share, for it depends on goals that you alone can reach, and he must never reach them or your goal is jeopardized. Can love have meaning where the goal is triumph? And what decision can be made for this that will not hurt you? So remembering that our goal is the same, the goal hasn't changed. It's the journey without distance to a goal that has never changed. And everything that is happening here is leading us to that goal that has never changed. We are here to awaken from the dream. So seeing the victimizer and the victim as the same is having the compassion that Lynn was talking about for all. Ken used to give an example when you don't hire a pedophile as a babysitter. That's common sense. But he would say, but that doesn't mean you don't love him. And that doesn't mean you can't be friends with him. You just don't, you wouldn't let him babysit your children. So we don't judge the person Everybody is playing their part perfectly. We don't know what anything is for. And to be able to have compassion for both the victim and the victimizer is what Lynn shared, is just such a beautiful example and demonstration of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen, for that sharing. Would anyone else like to share before we go on to read the next paragraph? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and read the next paragraph then. One of the most powerful witnesses to this process of forgiveness was the two Ten Boom sisters, Corey and Betsy. During their internment in a German concentration camp, told in Corey's inspiring book, The Hiding Place, confronted by the ostensible brutality of the German soldiers and the pitiful sufferings of those around them, the sisters came to the realization that if they were to be true to their Christian faith, they must forgive their Nazi tormentors, seeing them as their brothers and the same as those who were suffering. This was not an easy task they set for themselves, and the book describes their struggles to demonstrate truly what the love of God meant. Once, after observing a guard whipping a feeble-minded girl who was soiling herself, Corey whispered to Betsy, quote, "What can we do for these people? Afterward, I mean, can't we make a home for them and care for them and love them?" Corey said, "I pray every day that we will be allowed to do this, to show them that love is greater." And it wasn't until I was gathering twigs later in the morning, Corey writes, that I realized that I had been thinking of the feeble-minded and Betsy of their persecutors. At the close of the war, the surviving sister, Corey, returned to her native Holland and established recovery homes, not only for the displaced refugees, but for the psychologically displaced Germans as well. So they were actually, they went, Corey Ten Boom and her sister Betsy, they actually went to their right mind. And it was through really the Holy Spirit that they were able to forgive in this pitiful situation of, you know, what they were viewing, what they were projecting. And I mean, and then they ended up right getting out, being released, and they returned to their native Holland and established recovery homes and for displaced refugees and psychologically displaced Germans as well. And you know, my family was one of those because they were from the part of East Germany. They were psychologically displaced Germans from the East. So yeah, so I really appreciate the story here. Would anyone uh, like to comment on this? I see Karen, your hand's up, so please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Michale. This is beautiful. And this is the justice. This is the justice of heaven that the Course talks about. They're seeing the same interests in both parties, and they're being truly helpful, and they're demonstrating what the love of God is. The love of God loves his son equally. No one is left out. And this is the one lesson, actually, it's the only lesson that Jesus came to teach, that we are equal, that God's sons are equal in will, only being the will of his Father. This is the only lesson I came to teach. That's quote in the chapter 8, section 4. I think it's the freedom of will or something like that. But this is the love of God. Like we keep saying, it includes everyone. So they were able to see that. They were able to go above the battleground and be truly helpful and see that the justice of God sees the same interest. Everyone is the same. Beautiful.
Thank you, Karen. I see Glorian's hand is up. Please go ahead, Glorian.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just circling back to something that came to me when Karen was speaking before. You know, for me, the way I look at it, if seemingly somebody is doing something unacceptable, I recognize that, our interests are always the same. So if someone felt loved, safe, free, whole, well, complete, they're not going to be acting in that way. And ultimately, that is the desire of every soul. So when we recognize that, even Helen, when she said there's got to be a better way, that way is to recognize that no one's interests are separate from my own interests and take responsibility for our projections. And even if it comes down to that recognition that I'm not a victim, because I can change my mind about what I think I am. And if I align my mind with what I truly am, spirit, then I recognize that nothing could ever have any effect. And that this is just a dream, just a projection, as today's lesson goes into. And then we come to that place where we bless or forgive. And what is a true blessing? Making no demands. But if we're not making demands, we're not in judgment. So we're relinquishing our judgment, which is true forgiveness, and then blessing. Like Jesus tells us, let all things be exactly as they are. So we recognize on this level, we're accepting what is, and therefore diminishing that ego control. And we take it up and we recognize too that all things are as God would have them be, which means there's only grace. So if I'm not witnessing or experiencing grace, then that's my own projection of fear and guilt out there that's obscuring that. So then I get an opportunity to look at what unresolved guilt and fear I'm still projecting and then make a different choice about that. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Glorian, so much for your sharing on that. And I really like how you mentioned grace, because, and Karen mentioned too, like, we don't know what anything is for. And so this story with Corrie ten Boom and her sister Betsy, I mean, look at the grace, the good. And, how you were talking, it's like, take it to a higher level. So from that, the good that came out of it is that they were able to help psychologically displaced Germans and also refugees to come to that forgiveness, to have that grace bestowed upon them through their perception to through forgiveness. So we don't know what anything is for, and it's really beautiful. And also comes in line with right now on Ken Wapnick's class with Jeffrey Seibert. We're doing the quality of mercy on Shakespeare's play, The Merchant of Venice, and Shylock, and he wants a pound of flesh, and and in the end, he had to turn into a Christian. So it's a beautiful story about forgiveness and love, and kind of similar to this Corrie ten Boom story, and her sister Betsy, and what you and Karen were just talking about, and Lynn also. So I see Lynn's hand is up. So please go ahead, Lynn.
All right. I just wanted to point out that an interesting thing here is that there were two of them. That they were sisters and they joined together to come up with this belief, this thought, this they helped each other. And that's one of the reasons that, Jesus invites us to join together, two by two, so that we can we can do that. Where one will might be weak, the other is there to support, and vice versa. So this connection that Jesus is so clear about in the Course in Miracles, it really is, I think, the secret or the key to actually being able to do this work. And that's again why when we join together, we're so much more powerful. So anyway, just thinking about that, if it had just been one of them, they might not have had the courage or the um, uh, whatever they needed to keep going on. Anyway, thank you for letting me share.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. We were just in the previous chapter, we were talking about that joining. So joining with your brother, and that's beautiful. And I think Dove always says that Jesus was never really very good at math. I think that's what Dove says. But it's kind of like 2 + 2, it doesn't equal 4. 2 + 2 actually equals 3, and 3 equals 1. So you join with your brother. So it's beautiful. And I think there's a quote in the Bible that says, where 2 or more are gathered in my name, there I am. So that 3 becomes 1. It's the triangle. So thank you so much for that sharing. And I do see that Karen's hand is up, and then Glorian's hand is up, and then Lynn's hand is up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. And I want to go back to the same interest that Glorian had also brought up. And, it really comes down to the truth of what we are. I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. This is our perfect equality. This is the truth of what we are. This is where we share our same interests. And in the teacher's manual, in the very first section, who are God's teachers? A teacher of God is anyone who chooses to be one. His qualifications consist solely in this. Somehow, somewhere, he has made a deliberate choice in which he did not see his interests as apart from someone else's. Once he has done that, his road is established and his direction is sure. A light has entered the darkness. The Holy Spirit has come in. It may be a single light, but that is enough. He has entered an agreement with God. Even if he does not yet believe in him, he has become a bringer of salvation. He has become a teacher of God. And a bringer of salvation is really explained in the third paragraph, where he says, this is a course for every teacher of God. The form of the course varies greatly. So do the particular teaching aids involved, but the content of the course never changes. Its central theme is always God's Son is guiltless, and in his innocence is his salvation. So, this is what we're asked to do here in this world, to see beyond the body, to see beyond the form. This is how we're able to see that we have the same interest. Judgment comes from bodies. Judgment comes from differences, and we only see differences when we see form. Nothing so blinding as perception of form. So it really is the equality of God's will that we're truly talking about here. And it's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for your sharing. Glorian, please go ahead.
I really love that, Karen. Thank you. And that's it, as bringers of salvation, the messages of the truth, which is I and the Father are one. So, yeah, we teach that when we're speaking, but we also it's our responsibility to become the living demonstration of it. So we're always teaching, and for me, it's important to recognize that we bring these things, we think about them, but then we allow them to become the embodiment of what I am in consciousness. And it's always, all things are lessons God would have me learn, is always that I'm not a body and that I'm spirit. And it's our job to recognize the face of Christ in every brother. So if we are doing that, we've accepted that innocence and sinlessness and guiltlessness for ourselves. And the ark is entered 2 by 2 in that recognition. So we accept our own innocence, and then we recognize it beyond the concept that we seemingly see of our brother. And then he tells us that it's our job to transfer that to everyone. I think he says complete transfer somewhere, to transfer that to everyone. But so we start with one brother, and then we recognize that that same innocence, sinlessness, and guiltlessness is in everyone because there's only God. So there's one ego, one false mistaken belief, which is a lie, and then there's one Christ mind. So that's how we return home to the kingdom. And that's how we're vigilant for God in the kingdom, by our willingness to recognize that everything we see is a false concept, but beyond that concept is the eternal love and light of God. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gloria. And Lynn, I did see your hand up. Did you want to say something?
No, I had just forgotten to put it down from before.
Oh, okay. I see Karen's
Thank-
up. Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, thanks, Gloria. And I just wanted to add to what you shared because the arc of peace is entered two by two is the same thing as saying only equals are at peace. So I cannot be at peace if I'm judging my brother. I cannot be at peace if I'm seeing my brother as separate or different. And this is my practice in all my affairs. And I think I shared this story earlier this week. So I'm sorry for repeating it, but it's coming to my mind. But I was out with my daughter and my grandson and my uncle. We went to Burger King and I said to my daughter, "You go ahead and spend some time with Uncle Vinny, and I'll spend time with the baby." And we were at the playground, and he put his arms up like he wanted me to hold him, and it was just so beautiful. And I can't pick him up because of my back. I just can't do it. And I just looked at him and I just said, "I'm so sorry, honey. I wish I could, but my back it hurts too much. I can't do it." And he just looked at me with this beautiful love. I can't even explain it. It just the eyes, the love, and he just totally accepted it and just went on and played like nothing, it was like the beauty of that connection right there. We have the same interests. We're here to love each other. We're here to play. We were here to play. I didn't have to pick him up, and he understood that I couldn't, rather than cry or anything like that. It was just this beautiful joining, and this is in every single moment of every single day. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. That was really a wonderful sharing with your grandson or great grandson, I guess. Yeah, thank you, Glorian, for that. So I don't see anybody else's hands up, so I'll go ahead and read the next paragraph. We must begin then with our own attitude before we can discuss appropriate action. For as the Course teaches, all behavior flows from our thoughts. Central to this issue is our understanding of suffering. It is one of the more convincing illusions of the world that suffering is the effect of what has been done to us, that our pain is the result of causes beyond our control. Thus, it reflects the same error of cause-effect reversal we saw in sickness. The body suffers just in order that the mind will fail to see it as a victim of itself. The body's suffering is a mask the mind holds up to hide what really suffers. And that's taken from, Ken wrote from the workbook 76, I am under no laws but God's. As the Course explains further, suffering is an emphasis upon all that the world has done to injure you, like to a dream of punishment in which the dreamer is unconscious of what brought on the attack against himself. He sees himself attacked unjustly and by something not himself. He is the victim of this something else, a thing outside himself for which he has no reason to be held responsible. And that's from the Course, the text, chapter 27, the healing of the dream and the dreamer of the dream. So I would like to read the next paragraph. Suffering is the direct result of believing in the reality of the body, for only a body, physical or psychological, can suffer pain. Since the body is equated with the separation, pain serves the ego's purpose of denying the reality of God and His creation. Pain is a sign illusions reign in place of truth. It demonstrates God is denied, confused with fear, perceived as mad, and seen as traitor to himself. If God is real, there is no pain. If pain is real, there is no God. And that's from the workbook, lesson 190. So, all pain and suffering, the reality of is that it comes from the mind. And so it's a projection and it comes up for it to be healed. However, Ken also says that, if on a physical level the fear is too great and you're in a lot of pain, then take some magic pills, or do something to help you on a physical level. Because within the dream, there are frequencies too. There are tones, and DNA does have a frequency. It does have a tone within that level. So magic works because the fear is too great, and it's okay, and just not to judge yourself. So would someone like to comment on this section here? I see Karen, your hand's up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Michale. Yeah, as far as the pain, what comes to me again is, the peace that we can experience, the peace of God, which passeth all understanding when we are in our right mind and when we are with the Holy Spirit. We can be in pain and not suffer it. We can experience pain and still be at peace. So, as you said, the pain comes from the mind's decision. It's a decision. Everything here is a decision. And the Course reminds us you are deprived of nothing except by your own decisions, and then decide otherwise. Choose again. Temptation is of the body. All temptation is of the body. And he tells us in the very last chapter, in the very last section, choose once again, in the first paragraph, first sentence. Temptation has one lesson it would teach in all its forms. Wherever it occurs, it would persuade the Holy Son of God he is a body, born in what must die, unable to escape its frailty, and bound by what it orders him to feel. This is what the ego wants us to believe. And this is what the Course refers to once and one time only, the decision-making mind, where it says that the body thinks it's the decision-making mind. This is all for forgiveness, for undoing, for recognizing that no, it's not the body that is the cause. It is the mind that is the cause, that thought that the body was sick. So the goal of this Course is peace. So this is the practice. The practice is forgiveness. The practice is recognizing and noticing when I am in pain, I can still be at peace regardless, because it doesn't mean necessarily that the symptoms will go away. And that's the other thing the Course talks about. Yes, take the magic, but the magic will never awaken you, but it will comfort you. We meet our brother where he is. We have empathy. We have true empathy. And so, yes, I mean, this is so beautiful. And I just love being reminded of this because I could still be at peace regardless of what the body is going through. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for that sharing. And I see Glorian's hand is up. Please go ahead, Glorian.
Yeah, thank you for that, Karen. The way we always practiced was if there was any doubt, you take the magic because you're on that level at that point. So a few weeks back, I was having some body temptations, and Spirit, it came to me and to read this portion of the Course. I don't know if we have time, but it's the epilogue, and it really did help me. So I don't know if should I read it or, yeah? Okay. So it's the epilogue, and he says, "Forget not, once this journey is begun, the end is certain. Doubt along the way will come and go to come again. Yet is the ending sure. No one can fail to do what God appointed him to do. When you forget, remember that you walk with him and with his word upon your heart. Who could despair when hope like this is his? Illusions of despair may seem to come, but learn how not to be deceived by them. Behind each one there is reality and there is God. Why would you wait for this and trade it for illusions when his love is but an instant farther on the road where all illusions end? The end is sure and guaranteed by God. Who stands before a lifeless image? When a step away, the Holy of the Holies opens up an ancient door that leads beyond the world. So this really helped me because also the idea of being gentle, because he's telling us doubt along the way will go to come again. Because if we're in the ego carnal mind, that's it. And I think what Karen said is so important also, that we're really not here trying to fix a body. We're not here changing anything external to us. And this body is a false concept. And that's what we're dying daily to, the false concept of what we think we are, and surrendering that in favor of the experience of what I am. So, once we remember that the change and the healing comes at the level of mind, then we can be in our joy, regardless if we're having conditions, regardless if we're in remission or we're not in remission. It doesn't matter because we've recognized the truth of what we are in consciousness, and that's our salvation. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Glorian, for that beautiful sharing. And yes, I mean, you're recognizing the truth of who you are in that consciousness. And like the story of Corrie ten Boom and her sister Betsy and my Upa, my grandfather. One of the few times I ever saw him cry. So he was also, as you know, in a prison camp, and he saw people dying every day. He saw people getting beat to death. He saw people getting shot. And he went 9 days without food. He saw people being starved to death. And he had that forgiveness in him. And I remember shortly, it was getting close to before he had passed away, but we were sitting at the kitchen table. We used to sit at the kitchen table and talk. And that was the only time I saw him cry. And he had a soldier friend because he was in the Navy, and he had gotten shrapnel, a bomb in him, or had been shot. And so he was, on a physical level, he was passing away in my grandfather's arms. And he started telling him that, it was getting dark, and then he could no longer see because the body on a physical level is shutting down. So he was losing his vision. And then he died in my grandfather's arms. And my grandfather cried as he was telling me the story. So the memory, the pain is still there. As long as we still think we're here in a body, the pain is still there. And like to be gentle, like Karen was saying, to be gentle on ourselves. And I think you said that also, Glorian. And you have to take a little magic pill. The pain is still there, but we forgive ourselves. It's coming from the mind. And we don't judge. And then it's the one mind, and we forgive and we just ascend. As you said in that beautiful epilogue, the gates of heaven are open. So that's beautiful expression. And I'm so grateful to you, Glorian, that you read that. Thank you so much. And I see Karen's hand is up. We're on the hour. So I'll let Karen speak, and then I'll read a poem from Dr. Helen Schuckman. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Gloria. That was a beautiful reading. And thank you, Michale, for sharing about your UPA. Beautiful. And I just want to share that, my practice has been every morning. The moment I open my eyes, I am in class. And this is from Ken because it's so helpful. It's the same thing as rules for decision. Same thing, but it's a simple practice because what was happening, I noticed, the ego was speaking so strongly and it was really getting to me. Like I would wake up and I would just be miserable. And it was so hard to get out of it. And because the physical stuff that I'm going through is very intense right now. So I really, was more gentle with myself. That's what worked, being more gentle with myself, meeting myself where I'm at. Holy Spirit, help me see this differently, because in that moment, I wasn't capable. And that came to me, the moment you wake up, you are in class, meaning the moment you open your eyes, which teacher are you listening to? So the moment I open my eyes, when I feel that, like, oh, okay, I'm recognizing I'm listening to the ego. It's time to see another way. Holy Spirit, help me see this differently. The gentleness comes in, the forgiveness comes in, the peace comes in, and I go through my day like that. And it's a moment to moment. It's every moment, every day, but it works. And it's the forgiveness, and it's the gentleness, and it's the kindness, being kind to myself, meeting myself where I'm at. So I'm just so grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for your sharing. Thank you again, Gloria. And I'll go ahead, we'll end it here. And I'm going to read Helen Schuckman's poem from The Gifts of God. It's on page 7, The Will of God. There is a silence and a certainty, apart from time, a peace and quietness, surrounded by 1,000 angels' wings, and kept inviolate by God's own hand. It is for everyone, yet very few have found it. It will wait for everyone who seek, and all of them will find at last this secret haven, hidden from the world, and yet in open sight, its clarity. It's blazing, yet it is not often seen. Its call is constant, yet it is rarely heard. Attack must overlook it, yet to love, it gives an instant answer. Here, the will of God is recognized and cherished still. And it is here that finally God's Son will understand his will and God's are one. The Will of God, Dr. Helen Schuckman, Gifts of God, page 7. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Have a beautiful Friday.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys so much, and so appreciate everyone who shared. It's wonderful. I'm going to be turning the mic over to Carrie here in a minute. Just wondering, did anybody hear, did Robert yesterday say anything about any appointment today or anything? He's usually here this time in the morning, so just a little love in that direction. All right, you guys, I love you all, and I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I think. Here we go.